Thanksgiving, my sister declared. We're remodeling. You'll cover half, $25,000. I said no. Dad exploded. Can you imagine being told you're not family just because you wouldn't write a check for $25,000 you never agreed to? And what if that brutal declaration was actually the culmination of a betrayal so deep it still chills me to the bone? A betrayal they'd already set in motion, behind my back, using my identity. This isn't just a story about a bad holiday. It's about the moment I realized the people who were supposed to love me most saw me as nothing more than an ATM, and what I had to do to finally break free. It all went down on Thanksgiving, just a few years ago. My sister, Mara, stood at the head of my parents' dining table, wine glass in hand, looking like she was about to announce a royal engagement. But her first words weren't, "Happy Thanksgiving." They were, "So we're renovating." She had this smirk, this expectation of applause. My parents were there, my dad carving turkey with the intensity of a surgeon, my mom hovering, pretending not to listen. Mara tilted her phone, showing me a number. $50,000. "We got bids," she announced. "The contractor starts in January. And you're paying half. 25 grand. The fork almost slipped from my hand. I looked around, half expecting Ashton Kutcher to pop out with a camera. "You're serious?" I managed to ask. Mara just shrugged like it was obvious. "Well, obviously you don't have kids. You're the one who can afford it." "I'm a massage therapist. I do well, I'm booked weeks out, and I'm damn proud of that. But I'm not a bank. I'm not some bottomless renovation fund." "You didn't ask," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "You're just telling me?" She waved a dismissive hand, like my boundaries were a bothersome mosquito. "Because if we ask, you'll do your little I need to think thing. It's Thanksgiving, Louis. Family doesn't make things complicated." My pulse started to hammer in my ears. I took a breath. "No," I said. The word just hung there, foreign and unwelcome. Mara's smile faltered. "Excuse me." I said no. I repeated, louder this time, my throat tightening. "I'm not paying $25,000 for renovations I didn't agree to." Finally, my dad looked up from the turkey, his eyes sharp and already angry. My refusal was an insult. "Louis," he snapped, "don't do this." "Do what?" I shot back. "Say no? That's all I'm doing." Mara's cheeks flushed. "You're embarrassing me." "You embarrassed yourself," I retorted, "when you announced my money like it was yours." My mom made a small warning sound. Dad slammed the carving knife down, the fork rattling against the platter. "If you can't help your own family," he boomed, his voice rising, "then you're not family." The room went dead silent. Even the football game from the living room sounded muffled, far away, overwhelmed by the sudden, crushing weight in my chest. I stared at him a full second passing. My hands were shaking, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "Okay," I said, then actually shrugged. "Fine." Mara scoffed, a smug, satisfied sound. Dad leaned forward, his face contorted. "You hear me? You don't get to pick and choose when you're our son." I pushed my chair back. It scraped against the floor, a loud, ugly sound, but it felt honest. "You just did," I said. "You picked. I heard you." I walked to the wall, grabbed my coat, and slipped my phone into my pocket with fingers that didn't feel like my own. "Louis," my mom hissed, "sit down. Don't be dramatic." "Not being dramatic," I said, already halfway out the door. "I'm leaving." Mara threw her hands up. "Over a renovation. You're acting like we asked for a kidney." "You asked for $25,000, I said, staring directly at her. "That's not a side dish." My dad's voice followed me down the hallway, laced with a venom I'd never heard. "If you walk out, don't come back." I paused at the front door, my palm on the cold knob. Every fiber of my being wanted to turn around, to make it softer, easier. I wanted to be the version of me they'd trained, apologetic, flexible, grateful to be tolerated. But then I remembered Mara's entitled tone and my dad's face when he said, You're not family, like he truly meant it. So, I opened the door and stepped into the cold night. Happy Thanksgiving, I muttered to the empty air, and I shut the door behind me. I drove home shaking, not sobbing, not screaming, just that quiet, ugly tremor you get when your body doesn't know where to put all the adrenaline. At a red light, my phone buzzed. A text from Mara, "Stop being petty. Dad's furious. Just send the money and apologize." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. It wasn't even a request. It was a command, like I was a vending machine that just needed a harder punch. I didn't reply. I got home, fed my cat, and sat on my couch staring at the blank TV, the apartment humming with a lonely kind of peace. Then my phone buzzed again. "My mom, please don't do this. You know how your father gets. We need this renovation. The house is falling apart. Need, not want, not hope. Need." I typed back, "I'm not paying for renovations I didn't agree to. Please don't contact me tonight." I set my phone face down like it could burn me. I should have slept, but around 2 a.m., I found myself spiraling, my brain desperate for something concrete. I went through old files on my laptop, bank statements, scanned documents, all the boring adult paperwork I'd collected. That's when I saw it, a folder labeled Mortgage Docs. My stomach dropped like a stone. 3 years ago, when Dad got laid off and Mom's hours were cut, they'd called me crying. They were behind on payments, scared. They promised it was temporary. They just needed me to help on paper, so they could refinance and get a better rate. "It doesn't mean you're paying it, son," my dad had said, his voice reassuring. "It just helps us qualify. You're not responsible." I should have walked away then. I should have told them to figure it out like everyone else. But I was still in that old mode, the one where love was measured by what you gave up. So yes, 3 years ago I co-signed. Not because I was rich, but because I was stupidly hopeful. I hadn't thought about it in months. Payments were on auto-pay from their account, and they always assured me everything was fine. Anytime I asked, I got the usual, "Why are you so suspicious of your own parents?" Now, sitting in my dark apartment, I opened that folder. My name was there. My signature was there. My responsibility was there. And suddenly, Mara demanding $25,000 didn't feel like the real problem. It felt like the beginning of something much, much worse. The next morning, I called the bank. Not my parents. Not my sister. The one place that would give me facts instead of guilt. After navigating a robotic menu, I got a woman named Denise in the mortgage department. Her voice was polite, slightly tired, like all customer service voices. "I'm calling to check my status on a loan," I said. "I'm a co-signer on a mortgage with my parents." There was a pause as she pulled up the account. "Okay," Denise said slowly. "I see you here as a co-borrower. What can I help you with? Can you tell me what products are open on this account?" I asked. "Any lines of credit? Any new applications?" Another pause, then a click of a keyboard. "Well," she said carefully, "there was an application submitted recently for a home equity line of credit. HELIC, tied to the property. It's in process." My grip tightened on the phone. "Submitted recently as in when?" 2 weeks ago, she replied. 2 weeks. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. A HELIC. For renovations. I swallowed hard. Was I notified? "It shows here that disclosures were sent," Denise said, "to the email on file." "I never received anything," I said, already knowing what she was going to say next. Denise read the email address out loud. It wasn't mine. It was a weird variation. 1 extra letter, 1 number swapped. The kind of typo that isn't an accident when someone is trying to intercept your mail. My stomach went cold. "Denise," I said, my voice tight. "I did not submit that application. I did not authorize that email address. I need to flag this immediately." Her tone changed. Sharper. Professional in a very different way. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to transfer you to our fraud and security department. Stay on the line." Hold music started. I stared at my kitchen counter like it held the answers. 3 minutes later, a man came on. Fraud department. This is Mark. I explained everything. The cosign, the sudden renovation demand, the fake email. Mark didn't sound shocked. That almost scared me more. I'm going to place a freeze on any additional draws or approvals associated with your identity, he said. We're also going to require new identity verification from you and your co-borrowers. Can you remove me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He exhaled. Not from an existing mortgage, without refinancing or payoff. But you can absolutely withdraw consent for any new credit products and report unauthorized activity. If you believe your signature or consent was misused, we'll need an affidavit and potentially a police report. My mouth went dry. So they tried to get a helic using my name. That's what it appears, Mark said. And if your consent wasn't given, we'll stop the process. A bitter laugh slipped out of me. They're going to lose their minds. Mark didn't laugh. Mr. Lewis, I'm going to be blunt. If your family members are attempting to use your identity to secure credit, that's serious. It can impact your credit, your liability, your future financing. You're doing the right thing calling. After I hung up, I sat on the floor of my kitchen, back against the cabinet, and stared at nothing for a long, long time. Thanksgiving wasn't about turkey. It was about leverage. They weren't asking me to pay half because they believed in family. They were asking because they thought they already had me trapped. I did everything Mark told me to do. I went into a branch. I showed my ID. I filled out forms. I signed a fraud affidavit, stating clearly that I did not authorize any helic application, did not approve that email address, and did not consent to any new credit under my name. The banker helping me, a young guy with a nervous smile, kept looking up like he wasn't sure if I was about to explode. I didn't. I was too calm for that. Anger is loud when you're still hoping someone will apologize. I wasn't hoping anymore. Before I left, I also froze my credit with all 3 bureaus, changed every password, turned on every alert. I treated my identity like a house I'd finally decided to lock. That night, my phone was quiet. No messages, no calls. Almost like my family could sense that something had shifted, and they didn't know where the new landmines were. For a brief moment, I thought maybe they'd let it go. Then, 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me, call it curiosity, call it instinct, swiped to accept. My mother's voice hit my ear like a siren. "Louis," she cried, panicked and breathless. "What did you do?" I pulled the phone away for a second, then put it back. "Hello, Mom." "We got a call from the bank," she stammered. They said you withdrew permission. Something about fraud. And now everything is frozen." In the background, I heard my dad's voice, muffled but furious. "Give me the phone." I stayed calm. My hands weren't shaking this time. "That's correct," I said. Mom sounded like she was crying for real, or at least crying the way she cries when consequences show up at the door. "Why would you do that to us?" she demanded. "We were counting on that money. The contractor. Mara said you were renovating. I cut in. She said I was paying half, $25,000 without asking. It's our home." Mom snapped. "It benefits all of us." "I don't live there," I said. "And you told me I'm not family." There was a pause, like she'd forgotten that part. Dad's voice took over, loud and sharp. "You called the bank. Are you trying to sabotage us?" I actually smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly, sickeningly predictable. "You sabotage yourselves," I said. "Did you apply for a helic using my identity?" "What?" Dad barked. "Of course we did. You're on the mortgage. It's normal." "It's not normal to use a fake email address to intercept disclosures," I said. Silence. I could hear breathing. The faint clink of something in the kitchen on their end. Maybe Mom pacing, bumping a spoon against a mug. Dad's voice came back, slower now. "You're imagining things. I spoke to the fraud department, I said. They confirmed the email address on the application wasn't mine. Mom gasped, like the word fraud was a curse I'd thrown at them. That was probably a typo, she said quickly, too quickly. Mara probably typed it wrong. Mara also announced I'm paying $25,000 like she was ordering dessert, I said. So, I'm done assuming mistakes are accidental. Dad's voice cracked like a whip. You ungrateful, after everything we've done for you? I laughed again, soft and tired. Everything you've done for me? You raised me like an investment you could cash out. And on Thanksgiving, you told me I'm not family because I wouldn't write a check on command. Mom tried a different angle, her voice going syrupy, like she was switching masks in real time. Louis, honey, you know your father didn't mean it like that. He was upset. He meant it, I said, and honestly it clarified a lot. Dad's breathing was heavy. So what now? You think you can just pull out and leave us with nothing? I didn't pull out of your mortgage, I clarified. I pulled out of your new loan. The one you tried to get with my name. You're on the house. Mom cried. It's tied to you, too. Yes, I said, and that's why I'm protecting myself. From the background, I heard Mara's voice shriek, distant but clear. Who is he talking to? Then she grabbed the phone. I heard her storming, the thud of footsteps. Louis, she snapped, are you serious right now? You're going to ruin Mom and Dad's credit because you threw a tantrum. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You said I wasn't family, I reminded her. Why would non-family co-sign your mortgage or your renovation loan? Mara made a frustrated sound. Stop being dramatic. This isn't about that. It is exactly about that, I said. She hissed, low and venomous. We needed that line of credit. Dad already told the contractor we have it. We already picked materials. You can't just... I can, I said, and I did. There was a long, ugly silence. Then Mara's voice dropped into something colder. You're going to regret this. I leaned back against my couch and looked out my window at the quiet street below. No, I said. I'm not. She hung up. The next few days were a messy parade of consequences. My aunt texted, Your mom is devastated. Why are you doing this to them? My cousin messaged, Heard you messed with your parents' mortgage. That's low. It was amazing how fast the story traveled and how carefully it was edited. So, I stopped letting it spread without the truth. I replied to my aunt. They applied for a HELOC using my identity with an email that wasn't mine. I reported it to the bank. That's the whole story. No emojis, no pleading, just facts. I replied to my cousin. I didn't mess with their mortgage. I stopped a new loan they tried to take under my name. If that's low, you're welcome to co-sign for them. That shut him up. Then my dad tried again, this time with a different tactic. He called from his number. I let it go to voicemail. His message was pure rage. You think you're so big now because you rub people's backs for money? You're nothing without us. If you don't fix this, don't bother coming around ever. The old me would have curled in on himself, would have wondered if he was right. But the new me just sat there listening and felt something I didn't expect. Relief, because it wasn't confusing anymore. They weren't misunderstood. They were exactly who they'd always been. Here's the part that still makes my jaw tighten when I think about it. After the bank froze the HELOC application, my parents couldn't just fix it. They tried. Oh, they tried. They went into the branch together. They called. They complained. But the minute fraud is flagged, the bank stops treating you like a customer and starts treating you like a risk. They were asked for documentation. They were asked to verify email addresses. They were asked why a co-borrower had filed an affidavit. And because I was a co-signer on the original mortgage, the bank wouldn't move forward without my consent. The contractor, who had been promised a January start, backed out when the money wasn't guaranteed. Their renovating fantasies started collapsing like cheap drywall in humidity. Then the real fallout began inside their house. Mara had already posted Pinterest boards. She'd already told friends she was helping her parents with the renovation, like she was the hero. Now she had to explain why everything was delayed. And my parents had to sit with the fact that their plan, pressure me publicly, threaten my belonging, then use my name anyway, didn't work. They didn't apologize. They just panicked. A month later, I got a letter from the bank confirming the HELIC application was cancelled and flagged as unauthorized. It also stated that any future applications involving my identity would require in-person verification. I held that paper in my hands like it was a shield. Around the same time, my credit monitoring pinged me. Attempted inquiry blocked. They tried again. That's when I did the final thing I should have done years ago. I hired a lawyer. Not for revenge. Not to ruin them, just to protect myself. We sent a formal notice to my parents stating that any use of my personal information for credit applications without my written consent would be treated as fraud and reported. My lawyer, a dry, efficient woman with a voice like a stapler, also advised me to consider whether staying tied to their mortgage long-term was worth the risk. So I made a plan. I told my parents through the lawyer that if they wanted to keep their house, they needed to refinance within a certain time frame and remove me. Otherwise, I would pursue legal options to force resolution. Suddenly, they found motivation. Funny how that works. The day they finally refinanced without me, my dad didn't call to tell me. My mom didn't text. Mara didn't send a single petty message. I found out because my credit report updated. My name was off their mortgage. The invisible chain snapped. That night, I went to work like normal. I did deep tissue on a guy who always fell asleep halfway through and snored softly into the face cradle. I chatted with an older woman about her grandkids while I worked her shoulders. I came home and cooked myself something simple. Pasta, garlic olive oil. No drama, no shouting, no family group chat exploding with demands. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something I hadn't let myself feel before. I wasn't grieving losing them. I was grieving the version of them I'd spent years trying to earn. A few weeks after that, I ran into Mrs. Halprin, my favorite regular client at the grocery store. She's the kind of woman who smells like expensive lotion and calls everyone darling, like she invented kindness. She looked at me over the top of her glasses. "You look lighter," she said. I laughed. "New moisturizer." She waved her hand. "No, your eyes. Like you've stopped carrying something that wasn't yours." I stood there in the produce aisle, holding a bag of oranges, and felt my throat tighten because she was right. That was exactly it. I didn't tell her the whole story. I didn't need to. I just said, "Yeah, I think I finally did." I still get messages sometimes. My mom on holidays will send, "Hope you're well." Mara once sent, "Dad's blood pressure is bad. Stress makes it worse." A cousin tried to invite me to a barbecue, like nothing happened. I don't engage. Not because I'm punishing them. It's because I'm done negotiating my humanity for access to a family that only wants me when they need something. The truth is simple. If the price of being family is surrendering my money, my credit, my peace, and my right to say no, then I'd rather not be family. So when my dad told me, "Then you're not family," and I shrugged and said, "Fine," I wasn't being cold. I was finally being honest. And when they called 2 weeks later, panicking, "The bank says you co-signed our mortgage and just withdrew permission." My calm reply wasn't cruelty. It was closure. Because they taught me the rules the moment they tried to spend my name like cash. And I finally learned the only one that matters. No one gets to use you and call it love. Have you ever faced a moment where you realized family obligation had become something truly toxic? Or had to make an impossible choice to protect yourself? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments below.